Welcome to What Happens After the Show, Episode 6, where today we have a super packed episode where we are going to be talking AEW Dynamite from 3/20/24. Then we are going to be talking AEW Rampage from 3/20/24. And then at the end, we are going to be talking about Dark Side of the Ring, Season 5, Episode 3. AEW from 3/20/2024 started off with Toni Schiavone and Mercedes Moné in ring. Good idea starting out with Mercedes. With all these big signings, you want to have Mercedes. You want to have Okada. You want to have Ospreay on your TV each week. She brings up the injury in match with Willow Nightengale. Video gets played that Mercedes put together to introduce herself to you. Feels like they're really building up to Mercedes versus Willow. Mercedes said minor setbacks make for major comebacks. She says she is here to lead a woman's global revolution. There's a price to pay when you mess with Monet. Lights go out. Julia Hart appears in entryway. Sky Blue goes for the attack. Mercedes hits her with a lung blower. Julia Hart comes in, and they escapes before getting hit with a moneymaker. When Julia and Skye go for chairs, Statlander and Willow come out for the save. Lights go out. Julia and Skye disappear, and when the lights come back on, it looks like Willow is going to hit Mercedes with the chair. It makes sense to pair Mercedes with Willow since they had the match in New Japan Strong, but I almost thought for sure that with Toni bringing in Mercedes, he was going to put her right up against Toni Storm, much like in Okada's situation. And speaking of Okada, Alex Marvez was backstage trying to get word with Kazuchika Okada. The Bucks are accompanying Okada. They tell Marvez next time to introduce Okada in his native tongue. If anybody rises to the occasion, it's Okada. And since it's Continental Championship rules, the Bucks cannot be ringside. So they're going to be at the gorilla position with Tony Khan, and Okada's coming for Eddie's title. And first match of the night was Kazuchika Okada versus Eddie Kingston for the AEW Continental Championship. This was a great opening match. I love seeing Renee ringside giving insights as Eddie makes his way to the ring. We see a shot of Tony Khan backstage with the Bucks at the gorilla position. And I can't believe they're promoting things in the picture-in-picture. Even though you can see it, it's so small, but you can't hear the announcers. So I think AEW is really asking a lot putting that in the picture-in-picture. Eddie is getting to honor Japanese wrestling in AEW. It's great to see all the different matches he's had. And this match really honored Japanese wrestling here, but Okada hits the Rainmaker and wins the AEW Continental Championship. The Bucks are celebrating in the gorilla position, and it almost seems like they're celebrating in Tony Khan's face. Couldn't really tell there, but after that, we see Pat come out and faces off with Okada in the entryway. So it looks like we're getting Okada's first Continental Championship opponent. Then it goes to backstage with Swerve Strickland. Swerve talks about being inspired by Mike Tyson sparring, wants to spar himself, and he is offering an open challenge tonight. We then see Renee Paquette backstage with Kris Statlander, Willow Nightengale, and Stokely Hathaway, talking to them about the Rampage main event that is immediately following Dynamite, which is a Toronto street fight. How is tonight going to be different than any of the other times they faced these ladies? And Statlander says this time they're going to end this. And as they're talking, Mercedes comes in, talks to Statlander, seems to be doing it in a friendly way. And as she's going to confront Willow, Stokely is trying to introduce himself to her, but she kind of brushes past him. And this was a great segment furthering the animosity between Mercedes and Willow. And Stokely had a hilarious end of the segment, just left there with a funny look on his face. This backstage segment returned to more in-the-ring action. We are seeing Hook take on Chris Jericho. And a huge suplex from Hook right off the bat, dumping Jericho on his neck. Hook gets right on Jericho when he gets up. And Jericho got a little offense in, but this was really almost all Hook. He stays suplexing Jericho onto his neck, looked very strong. And there was a moment during this match that I was worried Jericho was going to win, but Hook looked major and got the win. After this, we go to Adam Cole in the storytelling chair. Wardlow disappointed Adam Cole. Wardlow's job now is to make sure the Undisputed Kingdom keep the championships that they currently have. This was followed by Jericho backstage with Renee. He is heavily putting over Hook, and next week says he has a proposition for Hook. So Jericho once again trying to build up the younger talent in AEW. We go from backstage to in the ring, where Tony Schiavone is in the ring with Will Ospreay. These segments have really helped make Ospreay over in AEW if he wasn't already. The crowd is loud for Ospreay, and he addresses his move from hated wrestler at Forbidden Door to the more fan favorite reaction he's getting now. He put over Danielson and Shibata from last week and addresses Danielson's comments, saying that he couldn't walk in Danielson's shoes because they were too small. He puts over his career in Japan versus Danielson's career in Japan. And next week, he is going to wrestle Shibata. So Ospreay Shibata on free TV is going to be wild. I can't wait to see it. And another thing I enjoyed seeing was the video package they played after that for the TNT Championship I Quit match. The video production in AEW is great, and it's just a good video building up the importance of this match. That video was followed by Mariah May and Toni Storm versus Deonna Purazzo and Thunder Rosa. Rosa and Purazzo get right on Toni Storm and Mariah May. You can see that Rosa's targeting Toni Storm. The match has me excited for the eventual showdown between Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. And in the end, Thunder Rosa rolls through after getting hit with a hip attack, gets the win. And yeah, like I said, this match did a lot to having me look forward to what that women's championship match is going to be when it happens. After this, Swerve comes to the ring for his open challenge, and the Butcher responds to the challenge. He wanted a big man, and he got it. Swerve started with a headbutt, was dominant after that. The Butcher had his moments, but in the end, Swerve wins with a modified short arm scissor. Swerve gets on the mic after the match, says he's going to take out security week after week after week until Joe gives him what he wants. Joe comes out, and as Joe is about to give Swerve what he wants, Don Callis comes out, and the crowd is so loud when Callis makes his way to the ring, saying that Takeshita deserves just as much of a shot as Swerve. So next week, he proposes Swerve versus Takeshita, and we see the rest of the matches we're getting for next week. We are getting Young Bucks versus Private Party in the tag team tournament. We are getting Shibata versus Ospreay. So AEW is starting to do a very good job of building up the next week's show before it's there and getting you excited for it, not just giving you a couple days on that. In the main event, Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage, I Quit match for the TNT Championship. Copeland goes for the first move, but Christian got right on him. Copeland soon got control. And this was wild brawling all over the arena. This had weapons. This had people. It felt a little overbooked, but in the end, it was a wild match. And one notable spot that I liked was Copeland and Cage fighting in the crowd. They make their way to a penalty box. Copeland grabs a Bruins jersey off someone and puts it on Cage. After that, he grabs a Maple Leafs jersey from someone else in the audience and puts it on himself. And then we have a good old-fashioned hockey fight in the penalty box. A lot of action in this match. At one point, Christian did a crossbody off the top rope that looked like he banged his head. Coming back from the break at one point, Copeland launched Cage off the stage. In the end, Copeland won after repeatedly kicking Cage in the nuts when he was handcuffed in the corner. And then he took out Spike, hit him in the nuts, and then went to hit him in the head when Cage finally quit. So, wild AEW Dynamite. Adam Copeland got the TNT Championship in his hometown versus his best friend. So this was a great great show. I enjoyed it. Now, there was a little overrun on Dynamite, so it bled into Rampage. And Rampage starts off with a video from the Gun Club. They have a skeleton with a sign that says Darby on Everest. They addressed the attack on the Acclaimed, the attack on their dad, Darby not being able to make it to Everest, Jay White painting Sting's back gold, and Jay White addresses Darby. After this, we see Renee in the arena on the entryway talking to the Acclaimed. They address Jay and the Gun Club. A lot of crowd interaction. This almost felt like they were killing time to clean up between Dynamite and Rampage. They show a graphic for the Tag Team Championship Tournament. The Infantry upset House of Black last week on Collision, so they are set to fight FTR this week on Dynamite. Other matches coming up in the tournament include Starks and Big Bill versus Top Flight, Young Bucks versus Private Party, and the Undisputed Kingdom will face the winner of Best Friends and the Callis family, which makes its way to the ring now. Best Friends got some offense, but Callis family was dominant. Cassidy went on a run, but then Callis family gets back in control. Hobbs looks like an absolute killer in this match. In the end, the Best Friends won. The match was all right, but I almost felt like the Callis family had this locked up. And this match was followed by another match since Shibata was called out. They had to put him on the show tonight. And we got Katsuyori Shibata versus Kevin Matthews. Kevin Matthews, big guy, decent in the ring, never really stood out particularly much to me. I thought this was going to be a squash match, but Matthews got some offense in before Shibata put him in a sleeper and hit him with a penalty kick. We followed this match with seeing Adam Copeland's celebration backstage with Seidel, Top Flight, Best Friends, Action Andretti, and more. This backstage celebration was followed by Konosuke Takeshita versus Rocky Romero. Good match. Takeshita is always impressive, but Rocky looked really strong in this match. In the end, Takeshita won with a Falcon Arrow. And the main event of Rampage, your last match of the night, Kris Statlander and Willow Nightengale versus Skye Blue and Julia Hart in a tag team street fight. It was chairs versus kendo sticks in the entryway as Skye Blue and Julia Hart were the last two to make it to the ring. Julia Hart hit Skye Blue with a spike on accident at one point. Interaction between Toni and Stokely is hilarious on commentary. Julia Hart taps out Kris Statlander with Heartless. Great main event. Willow Nightengale looks super strong throughout this whole thing. And if we haven't talked enough wrestling tonight, we are talking Dark Side of the Ring, Season 5, Episode 3, all centered around Terry Gordy. Starts by talking about his prodigious rise in the business starting at the age of 14. You know, they start, the first talking head they introduce you to is Miranda Gordy and her talking about how she's expected to be as good as her dad. Next, we meet Ray Gordy, who didn't use the Gordy name in WWE because he didn't think he could live up to it. As with any of the episodes so far in Dark Side of the Ring, I love all the old pictures. I love the old footage. You have Cornette as the history talking head, and Jimmy Garvin kind of giving you firsthand experience of being in a team with Terry Gordy and kind of a little bit more of the wrestling story about it. We're not going to cover all the beats. It was great when they covered Von Erichs versus Freebirds, the Freebirds being one of the first to use music. Then you start getting a little more into the downfall with the increase in drugs. They failed their WWF tryout, so that kind of veered him into going to Japan. To get back into shape, he contacted Richard Simmons, which I thought was an interesting side note. We see being on the road starting to take his toll on him. And I might have messed up in my notes. I don't know if it's his first overdose or I don't know if they talk about two overdoses or if it was one overdose and the break just interrupted it. But they talk about the overdose that put him in a coma that changed his personality pretty much forever since then. And his subsequent career, he was back training within 2 weeks. And, you know, his nephew had to teach him how to wrestle again. He did some time in ECW. They covered his final WWE stint where he was the executioner. But his drugs and his behavior was getting worse, so they knew it wasn't a situation they could keep going. And they end with a big story of Ray was supposed to tag with his dad. Ended up he couldn't make it to the show. And then he finds out the next day that his dad is not in a good way and dies before Ray can get there. Died at 40 of congestive heart failure due to a blood clot. Another great episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Another big week of wrestling. You know, if you enjoy what you hear here, and you want to participate in these lives, go follow us on TikTok, and that way you can be there and comment live every time we go live. If you don't watch us live on TikTok, we put the audio up later on our podcast feed. The video goes up later on our YouTube feed. If you enjoy what we do, it would mean the world to us if you can drop a comment in each episode, hit like, share, subscribe wherever you can. Most importantly, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next time, guys.